Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Unbettable. I am Mondo here today with Holmes and Gare. I apologize in advance if my voice is not up to par throughout the episode. I got done with the dentist today. They kicked my ass. I did not have a good time. My mouth really fucking hurts. Aside from that, boys, how was the weekend? I'm sure you guys spent it watching sports. So, Holmes, we'll start with you. How was your weekend? What were initial takeaways?
We sure did watch sports this weekend, and I gotta say, I was a pretty happy man on Saturday because the Florida Gators, despite blowing a massive lead, I think 19 points in the second half to the Georgia Bulldogs, they came out on top in OT. Gators basketball heating up a little bit. Love to see it. And then Sunday, everything kind of just came crashing down, man. 2-4
Yeah.
day betting. The two teams that I did not pick in the bracket challenge to go to the Super Bowl ended up going to the Super Bowl. Uh, just a tough one, man. Just a tough one. Not what I expected this weekend, but what can you do?
Yeah, like you, 0-6 betting on football this weekend. Not a great weekend. 0-2 in the bracket. Let's send it over to the ISS feed. Gary Gowdy, how was your weekend?
We out here chilling in space and shit, just vibing above the earth, looking at my creation. Um, yeah, this is gonna be a new thing. I'm gonna have a new background every week just because I got some shit for my background. So yeah, we got a different one. But yeah, fuck the NFL. I was not happy at all with the results that we got yesterday. I did get one pick correct. I picked the Niners to go to the Super Bowl, so I guess that's good. Is it who I wanted to go to the Super Bowl? Not at all. I definitely think we'll talk about that later, but yeah, Ravens obviously did not play like the Ravens we've seen the past couple weeks. We'll just talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, and on the record, it was not Holmes or I giving Gary shit. It was someone else. I do not know who, but it was not us. Just on the record, so people don't come for our throats. But let's hop right into it. Obviously, we'll start Chiefs Ravens. What we thought was going to be the biggest, high scoring electric matchup turned into an absolute shit fest where the least shitty team won. I mean, to put it point blank, that's kind of how you have to describe it. On one hand, you got the inevitable Chiefs. You know they're going to find a way. Travis Kelsey had a great game. Um, but on the other side, you have this Ravens team that's been so hyped up all season long. Incredible defense, probably best in the league. Your QB's the MVP. You just come out flat. You just didn't show up. There's a lot of points to discuss there, but I want initial takeaways before I dive into anything. So, Holmes, let's start with you.
I think overall, I wanted to be surprised because I was on the Ravens side. I felt good rooting for the Ravens. I felt like they had a great chance to win this game at home, but then again, I can't really be that surprised because six straight AFC championships now for the Chiefs that they've gone to. This is going to be now what their fourth Super Bowl that they've gone to. I mean,
Yep.
in that stretch, that's just pure domination, man. And this game, I look at the stat sheet. You look at the way the star players showed up for the Chiefs. I mean, Patrick Mahomes was fantastic just distributing the ball to his boy Travis Kelsey, another star on the team. I mean, their offense was cooking through both of those two. George
Mhm.
Karlaftis, a big star on the defensive end, had a great game for them, and so did Chris Jones. The big time players are stepping up in the biggest moments, and you can't really say the same for the Ravens.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of it has to do with that Chiefs experience that they've had so much of in the playoffs and a very big lack of that for the Ravens. But I mean, when it mattered most, Lamar didn't play up to that MVP standard. Zay Flowers had very critical mistakes down the stretch. I mean, there was a difference of star players showing up and not showing up on these teams.
Yeah. We'll dive into that a little bit more because I have a couple points there too. But Gare, what was your initial takeaway?
I don't know. You said they came out flat, which I kind of agree, but they also scored. Both teams scored on their opening drive. which had me excited because I was just like, all right, like this is gonna be a good game. And it was. Final score 17-10. Like it was not a blowout by any means necessary. But I don't know. It was just like it seemed like the Ravens defense wanted it more than the offense did. And that's just like it's very unfortunate because I feel like the Ravens, both sides have been explosive all year, of course.
Mhm.
Um, but the Ravens line, O line specifically, could not hold up. Lamar is known for scrambling and known for getting out of these situations. But when the ball is snapped and you have an edge rusher coming around immediately and nobody is picking him up at all, especially from the Chiefs. I mean, these are not no scrubs that are like coming after you. Like they know you're fast, they know what you do. Like you have no choice but to either A, get rid of the ball, or B, take a hit. And I feel like Lamar was taking too many hits. Like he's a soldier and he can run through fucking hell and back. But you know, when it's every single play that you're getting blitzed off the edge and nobody's picking it up, you can't do anything. So like I feel like yes, Lamar did throw a pick. Yes, he did make some bad decisions. But like if you don't have an O line, you have no offense at all. And I feel like that's a tale as old as time. Like, you know, people say it, but until you actually play the sport, I feel like especially that's when you really realize
Mhm.
the importance of an O line and having a solid group of guys out there. And they just didn't show up.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar obviously had some, pretty great plays. The catch and throw, like that whole sequence was unreal. He did have a lot of mental mistakes. Throwing an INT into triple coverage, obviously one of them. But there's a lot of things in between there that it just didn't set him up for success. One is they ran the ball 6 times with their running backs. You can't spread the field out if they know exactly what's coming every play, and that's either a pass or
Yep.
Lamar scramble. All they have
Yep.
to do is put a spy on Lamar, and it shuts down the entire play. It is not a recipe for success when you don't have Hill or Gus Edwards getting in there and getting the run game going. Um, on top of that, it's tough to put Lamar on this pedestal. He's a two-time MVP. Everyone continues to hype him up. But let's call it like it is. The guy in the playoffs is a choke artist. His worst 3 scoring outputs, all 3 of them are playoff games. The guy, I don't know what it is. I don't know if the scheme gets changed in the playoffs or something, changes in the locker room, but he comes out flat in the playoffs at some point or another and just completely falls apart. And when your leader falls apart, the rest of the team's going to fall apart. You saw that with Zay Flowers taunting and fumbling. I mean, you saw that with Van Noy getting in the face of Kelsey, giving him a shove. That's a flag. It's like all these mental mistakes, they start at the top with Lamar and the coaching staff, and they work their way down until you guys all completely fall apart. And that's the most crucial part is you need to be locked in at all times. They just were not. Not a single player on their team was ready to show up. And that's unfortunate. I mean, it really is. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like it's also good. You know, we should give the Chiefs credit. We were saying it. They are inevitable. They do just keep pushing no matter what. Um, I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on the kind of the reasoning why this playoff run is a success and why it's happening. Because I have an answer, and I'm curious if you guys have one as well. So, why are the Chiefs doing so well in the playoffs and are going on this run? Holmes?
I mean, for me, I think a lot of it has to do with that continued experience year after year. I mean, for Patrick Mahomes, playoffs is all that he knows as a starter. That's what he's accustomed to, and he's
Mhm.
accustomed to now thriving in these situations because he's been there so often. He knows the mentality that it takes to be able to win these type of games. And I think not only that, but it goes a lot deeper, like behind the scenes in the locker room type stuff.
Mhm.
Like we don't ever really hear about different stuff about him, like galvanizing a locker room or being like a real big leader, because they might not just talk about that a whole lot. That might be a behind closed doors type of thing. He might be the guy with Travis Kelce that galvanizes the hell out of that team. And him, I think, along with honestly an incredible coaching staff. Like, you got to give Andy Reid a lot of credit. You got to give Steve Spagnuolo a ton of credit. I mean, they have been doing a fantastic job with the personnel that they've had, and we've talked about it. The defense has been great this year. The offense has looked nowhere near the as powerful as they've looked in previous years. Receivers are dropping the ball. Receivers are not staying healthy or on the field. Kelce really hasn't looked like himself all season until the playoffs when he's showing up and showing out. So, I mean, I think they just know when to turn it on. They kind of just, they remind me, this is very funny, but they kind of remind me of the Tampa Bay Lightning a little bit. Like, for some reason, every year, the Lightning just look like they're just like moseying their way through the regular season because they go to the playoffs every year. They go pretty deep every year. They're just waiting to get there so they can be like, all right, boom, let's flip on the switch and let's start playing for real. Let's not try to like give away too much of what we can do during the regular season so we can come out and punch you in the mouth in the playoffs.
Yeah,
That's just
my
my opinion,
comparison
though.
was the Heat. I thought it was very similar to that.
Yeah.
Gary, what's your thought?
Yeah, Holmes touched on it. Andy Reid, I think, is working on becoming one of the best coaches of all time. Especially if he wins the Super Bowl, he's just cementing his name even further into that title. But also the Chiefs, like they have superstars, yes. They have arguably one of the best QBs in the league right now, one of the best tight ends. Like they have all the running backs, wide receivers, defense you could think of. They have it all. But I also think it comes down to experience and also chemistry. And this team has stuck together through thick and thin. And yes, they've chirped at each other. You got KT, Kadarius Toney, that was kind of,
Well,
sparking
we'll
shit
get
up.
there. We'll get
And
there.
you saw what he said on live, but whatever. He's CTE. But anyways, yes, they know what it takes, and like Holmes was saying, they know when to turn it up and when to turn it down. And it's every year, like in the playoffs, it's just this team that does not make mistakes. And when they do make mistakes, they don't get behind on themselves. They're like, all right, fuck it, we messed up. Let's just go back out there and fix it. Which I
They
think
make the
is really
adjustments
what
very well.
like I think it separates them, especially from the Ravens. Like, like Mondo was talking about with Zay Flowers and the taunting after he made that big play. Like that's what separates like a good player from a great player. Like, yes, Zay Flowers is a good player, but a great player is not going to make a great play and then fucking flip you over and mount you and then spin the ball on your forehead. Like it's not going to happen because you made a great play. Why send it back? Like, why not just keep going? So, and that's what the Chiefs do. So, I think, like I said, it comes down to chemistry and experience at the end of the day. They have these great players. Patrick Mahomes, as much as I, I can't even say I don't like him because he's a great player. But also, the final point I think I need to make is the hate. The hate they have been getting this season is real. And they've received a lot of love from another side, but it's not a side that typically watches sports and consumes the NFL as a primary source of entertainment. So, when you're like us, I'm sure some of them scroll through TikTok and you see all these edits of somebody you're playing next week and how he's absolutely going to destroy you and fuck your girlfriend and da 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 da. Like, I mean, that puts fire under your ass. You want to win, you want to prove everybody wrong. And that's what they did. So,
Yeah. I mean, the answer I came up with, it's very similar to you guys, kind of combined. The answer is Patrick Mahomes. And it's not quite what you expect. Yes, he's the best QB in the league. Yes, he's got an incredible arm. Yes, he's mobile. Yes, he can do this, do that. The reason why is it's his leadership, not just on the field, but off the field, in the locker room, and more specifically in front of the media. The whole talks this year has been they do not have wide receivers. Their wide receivers suck, blah, 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 blah. The one man that has kept his composure and not said a fucking word the whole year is the guy throwing him the ball. Do you know how much confidence that gives you as a receiver? You're obviously struggling. The media is calling you out, and the franchise QB, the best player in football, is standing by your side, not saying shit to the media. That's the glue. That's the chemistry, and that is what leads to victories. Mahomes can single-handedly hold the team together just by staying quiet. People have been bitching this year about how Patrick Mahomes has been bitching to the refs. I don't think that's quite what it is. I think what it really is Patrick Mahomes is deflecting to the refs in almost like a way of support to draw attention away from receivers. That's more of how I feel because we've never seen Mahomes like this, and it's only been this year with this receiving core. So I feel like that leadership, the experience, like that whole thing is in one person can change this team, and they lit a fucking fire when it was time. We've said it all year. If you're hot at the right time, it does not matter. You will take off in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And for me, it is all because of Mahomes' leadership. That's what it comes down to.
I will say, if we're planning on moving off of this game, I do have one last thing to say. The Ravens' discipline in this game was awful. It was on both sides of the ball. Obviously, defensively, we saw it, and they're just stupid penalties. I mean, late hits, the just unnecessary roughness, all of the silly stuff that they're doing on the defensive side to just give away free yards to Patrick Mahomes. Quite possibly one of the worst things you can do playing them because, like you said, the Chiefs don't make those type of mistakes. They bait you into making those mistakes for them so that they can get the free yards. And then on the offensive side, like we've talked about, is Zay Flowers, obviously with the massive taunting penalty, the really big fumble into the end zone for a touchback. I mean, that you have to be much more disciplined in that just area of the field, the red zone. You got to know that you have to secure the ball down there and get a touchdown by any means, especially when your team is down and hasn't produced anything since the first half. I think a big thing too that's kind of overlooked is I know you're shitting on Lamar a little bit. I get it. He didn't play as well as he probably could have, but I wouldn't say that all of it is on his shoulders. I think a lot of it has to do with the offensive play calling in this game. Like we said, I mean, you have 6 combined carries in between Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. I mean, not even attacking the Chiefs with the running game was pathetic, obviously. And then in every pass play that they're trying to use Lamar, they're just trying to give him a chance to scramble by sending every receiver deep. That's not what they're good at. Have these guys run short, shallow crosses, have them run quick posts, quick slants, like get the ball into these guys' hands quickly. Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, like these guys can use their speed. They can use their skill to be able to move the ball down the field. I don't know why they're keeping Lamar in the pocket for 4 or 5 seconds, giving these Chiefs edges and defensive linemen more than enough time to be able to get to him. He can't escape every time. I know how good he is in the pocket, escaping everything, but again, every time it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And, shout out to Spags. I think at this point, he might be the best defensive coordinator of all time.
Yeah, that was a big game for him.
I mean, but you think about his history, obviously, with the Chiefs, he's been incredible. But this is the same man that shut down by far the greatest team on paper in that undefeated Patriots roster. So when you have that guy leading your defense, it's a no-brainer. Like, they are good.
Yeah, I really do.
But Gary, you hinted at it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it as an overall subject. How come every player that enters the NFL from the University of Florida is a fucking dipshit? Why is it every single one? I mean,
not everyone. It can't be everyone.
Almost everyone. Jawan Taylor hops off sides every play. Liability. Damian Pierce, there's nothing really bad I can say about him other than he can't stay healthy. But let's talk about 2. The first being Kadarius Toney. So during the game, he went on IG Live saying his injury designation is fake. He's not hurt at all. This and that and this and that. My guy, they are saying you're injured in hopes that a team may want you next year. And so that you are not a liability on that field. That is why they're saying you're injured. If you're a healthy scratch, you'll never get picked up again. That's just a fact. Like, I don't know how he's the last person to figure out that he is a purposeful injury designation, but holy hell is this guy fucking stupid. Gary, I saw you grinning a little bit down there, so I really want to hear your thoughts on this.
He's the Joker. Everybody knows him at UF as the Joker. That is what he called himself. He is my Twitter profile picture, that infamous picture with him and the Diamond Grills and the Shiesty on. That will literally make your kids cry if you show it to them before they go to bed. But I don't. It's just embarrassing, bro. Like, cause you know, as a Florida fan, you talk about how great the Gators are, and especially that team that KT played for. They were a great team. Yes, that is my profile picture. But they were a great football team. And like even though they didn't go as far as we all wanted them to, that was a great era of Florida football, at least for the past 5 years. Like that is definitely a highlight in the realm of darkness that we're currently trapped in. But it's just like he started off hot with the Chiefs last year, made some big plays in the Super Bowl. Obviously, this year he got a little cold. He couldn't catch some balls here and there. But like, bro, like you were playing for the best team in the league right now. And then you take it to IG Live like you're some SoundCloud rapper and call out your beef with an entire franchise. Like, do you think it's like if I went on IG Live and was like, "Oh, Mondo's a bitch. He's a piece of shit. He does this and that." Like, I'm not going to be on the next episode,
Would
obviously, because
never.
I just started something that didn't need to be started, and that's how it is with Kadarius Toney. You take it to your millions of followers on a platform. That is the big thing that like I've learned is a platform. Everything starts with a platform. You can influence your platform. You can build off your platform, but you can also jump off your fucking platform and face plant into the ground. And
Yep.
that is what Kadarius Toney is doing right now. He is literally falling. He hasn't hit the ground yet because he's still on the roster, but he is damn near 6 inches away from becoming a pancake. And it's unfortunate because, like, you look at other players around the league that have come from the University of Florida, like Mondo said, that have fucked up, but there are the good ones. Kyle Pitts, he's not a
Yeah.
superstar player necessarily, but he is a great man, a great human being, and the definition of what it means to be grateful for a position that you are put into. You have Kyle Trask. He doesn't really do anything, doesn't shake the room a lot, but he's there and he hasn't fucked up. So like whatever, he's still there. But then
Yeah.
you have KT who has like the best shot at becoming more successful than the entirety of that class, and he's just thrown away. And I'm just like, all we can do is watch. Like, what are we gonna do about it? Nothing. So, I hope your rap career really takes off, Joka, but your football career is going into the ground.
Holmes?
I don't really have much. I mean, you guys pretty much covered it all. It's when you use a platform like this to try and disparage your team, man, it's just not a good look. It is embarrassing, like Gary said, and this is just you don't want other teams to be seeing this and then making that a reason as to why they're not going to sign you next year. Like he is very easily talking himself out of a job, and it is unfortunate to see because with how much skill and talent he had at the college level and how much he was able to showcase some of that at the NFL level too, like there's a lot of promise there, man. So yeah, I think you're right, Gary. It's very disappointing that possibly one of the most talented guys out of that Florida class is kind of wasting his career right now.
Yeah. And from one dipshit from Florida to another, let's move to the next game. CJ Gardner Johnson.
Oh
Now,
boy.
this obviously didn't catch as much fire in the media as Kadarius Toney. But if you watch football, you realize what the fuck happened and why it's on him. Second quarter, Lions up 24-7. Little camera pan to the sideline. what do you see? You see CJ's dumbass waving goodbye to the 49ers and all their fans in the second quarter. I mean, I don't know how many times we've seen it and we've talked about it. When you do that, you are setting yourself up with the fattest bitch slap from karma of all time.
Yeah.
And sure as shit, it happened. Like, it's once again, like, why is he from Florida? Why is it that, like, the big thing, the big fuck ups in the league and like the big problems or the big issue on a play, it's always a fucker from Florida. It's driving me crazy, man. It's really like I'm so annoyed by it at this point.
Silly
I
as
can't
hell.
deal with it. It's just I don't know. Like it's taught at like Pee Wee, middle, high school. You don't do that because you know this shit's gonna happen every time without fail.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but I'll throw it to you guys because I could rant about this all day. So by all means, take the floor.
I mean, I'm just going to talk about kind of the game at large a little
Yep.
bit. I mean, 34-31 win for San Francisco. The Lions did cover in this game. I was on that, and Jahmyr Gibbs got a touchdown, which was great. Literally my only 2 wins of this weekend. The Lions money line did not come through, and Brock Purdy over 276 passing yards, end of 267. So close, so close. But you saw in this game, man. I mean, Brock Purdy, like he was efficient. He got the ball to his playmakers. Deebo Samuel cooked that secondary for 89 yards. Ayuk, McCaffrey, Juszczyk, Kittle, they all had massive catches. And just at the perfect time when they needed him. I mean, that offense really turned it on in the second half. They made the adjustment after going down early and looked like the Lions were dominating the hell out of them in the first half. I mean,
Yeah.
Jared Goff was cooking. The defense was making some stands. It didn't look like Brock Purdy was maybe on his shit yet, but man, when they came out of that halftime tunnel, script completely flipped. Like never seen anything like that. The Lions, they can barely put up any points. And the biggest thing, obviously, I'm sure this will be talked about, but Dan Campbell, dude, you have to go for the points. You have
It
to go for
is
the
not
points.
the regular season.
And I totally get his attitude toward that. And like, I know how aggressive he wants to be, but I saw somebody on Twitter say there is a thin line between being aggressive and being stupid. And I don't know if he understands that line because in that situation, like you said, in the playoffs, this is where points matter, dude. I mean, especially in a game like this, offenses are putting up a ton of points. Like the defense isn't really getting it done, especially in the second half. Now that the 49ers are cooking, like you need to be able to keep up with them, man. And going for both of those fourth downs, like maybe you can justify one, maybe, but you have to kick the second one. You have to. I mean, for me, there's just no other way around it. I think that was one of the biggest reasons why they lost is just being a little too aggressive, and it can turn into stupidity in massive, massive games like this where they gave themselves a great chance to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. They kick the 2 field goals and they win the game. Is that simple? There's
Totally,
simple math.
totally could.
A, I don't know what he was doing. It's just an interesting. Like, yes, I get it. You did it all year, but this is not just another regular season game against the fucking Packers. Like, this is the real fucking deal. And you need to scrape for every point you can get. He didn't do it. Gary?
Yeah, and I think Dan Campbell knows that. After the game, when he went into that locker room and told his players, we may never get another shot like this. And he's right. Like even if you are a great team, getting to that round of the playoffs is a feat in itself. And it deserves like every player should pat themselves on the back just for making it. You are truly the best of the best. But when it came down to it, Dan Campbell went with his gut and his heart more than his brain. And I respect it. I really do. I respect that he didn't switch up like that. But at the same time, bro, like there comes a point in time where you just got to realize, like, maybe this shit ain't gonna fly, and it didn't fly. Like, it's just a simple mistake. But honestly, props to Dan Campbell bringing his team literally from 6 feet under. What was it? It was like 3-9 the first season, or no, not 3-9. God, 3-13. And then the next season he got a couple more wins, and now he's one step away from the playoffs. If I'm the Lions, I'm riding with Dan Campbell to the very end. He has figured something out with this team. Now, on the other hand, the 49ers. Brock Purdy pulled up and he was ready to play. And I feel like that's something that's not really being discussed a lot, but I feel like it definitely needs some more light because we have talked about it on the pod the last couple of weeks where, oh, what would Brock Purdy be without these superstar players? And in this game, we saw a side of Brock Purdy that I feel like we haven't really seen all season. A mobile quarterback that can throw on the run, but also adjust to a collapsing pocket and make huge plays. Like he did it all. And especially when the main thing was the running. When I saw him take off like that, I was like, "Oh my God. Like is that Brock Purdy running down the field?" Like usually the only person you see running down the field from the Niners is McCaffrey, but no, this white boy can run. And he showed it, and I think that's great. And I think now is the perfect time to pull out some stunts like that going into the Super Bowl because now you have the coordinator from the other team going, okay, Brock Purdy was this kid that literally just sat in the pocket, and if he didn't have shit, sack his ass, or else he's just going to throw it away, or he's going to get a quick pitch to McCaffrey. But now they see he can move. So it's like, okay, obviously not every single play is he going to be running like a Lamar-esque type player, but he has that option if he really wants to utilize it. So props to the Niners. I would have liked to see how this game would have played out at Ford Field. I think that it would have been a different story. I think that, the Niners fans themselves deserve some props for sticking it out through that first half. That crowd did not shut up.
No.
Like, even when they were getting slapped around, they kept going. And then whenever the Niners turned it up in the second half, they got louder and louder and louder, and the Lions just couldn't keep up. So, they had these first two games where they played in home territory. And when you're out there playing offense, everything's calculated and you could hear a fucking pin drop on the field. But now you step into the Thunderdome and everything switches. So I would have liked to see it play out somewhere else. Shout out to Pat, my neighbor. You're not getting a tramp stamp this year, maybe next year.
Oh my God.
But yeah, that's all I got to say about it.
Almost forgot about that.
Yeah, like I was saying, there's not a lot to take away compared to the Chiefs game. Here it was just a classic case of bad play calling and getting hot at the right time. So it's
Yep.
that simple. Congrats to the Chiefs and Niners making the Super Bowl. This next 2 weeks is gonna make me shoot myself with this media coverage, but that's all right. We'll talk about it on the next episode because we're gonna need stuff to talk about. So you'll get my full opinions then. Um, but now we're gonna turn it over to Gary because he has a new segment he wants to do, and we have no clue what it's about. Gary,
Wow, so Gary.
the floor is yours, sir.
All righty. Give me 2 seconds to pull it up.
Okay.
Gotta close that out.
This better be good, Gary. I'm psyched up for this.
All right. So last night, it was about 2 a.m. And if you know me, you know that I don't sleep. I sleep all day and stay up all night because I'm a vamp like that. But yeah, so I cooked this up last night. And I'm just gonna go ahead and share this. So here we have Gare's graveyard.
Wow.
The whole idea behind this is, as you can see, these are quarterbacks that have been eliminated throughout the course of the playoffs. There are a couple honorable mentions. I didn't throw the Steelers QB on there. I didn't throw Joe Flacco on there. I felt like they didn't really deserve spots in the graveyard. And of course, you have Roger Goodell up here, the all-seeing eye and the moon. Fuck that guy for real, but that's for another time. But we're just gonna kind of go from left to right and you'll notice some bigger faces that made it further, and also some bigger faces that didn't do shit. And I just kind of want to hear your guys' takes on how they performed throughout the season versus how they performed in the playoffs, and whether or not you think that they could have went further, or do you think they died at the right time and their calling was their calling. So we're going to start off here, the left. We got Mr. Baker Mayfield. Holmes, I'll let you have this one.
Oh, dude, I mean, played fantastic in the playoffs. Like, turned it on down the stretch. Like, I mean, you got to give a ton of props to that guy. First year in the system with the Bucks, and even though it started out kind of rough, I don't think the offense was really clicking on all cylinders. I mean, they were finding ways to win down the stretch, and he was airing the ball out. I love to see it, and I think that's a great approach that the Bucks got to continue to take moving forward with their receiving core. I'd love to see him back, man.
Mondo, you got anything?
No, I mean, he hit it on the head. Baker deserves to come back. Dude balled. Obviously, a couple of costly turnovers towards the end, but I mean, you get a guy that practically everyone's written off and he just shows up for you. You can't ask for more.
Yeah, I agree with both those points. I think Baker should definitely make a comeback to Tampa next year. I think he deserves it. But one thing I hope to see next year when he gets revived from Gear's graveyard is that the entire season he plays like he did in the playoffs, because there were some shaky games that obviously me and Holmes didn't like. But, it is what it is. We're all human. Let's move on to the next graveyard, or the next grave site. We got CJ Stroud. Mondo, I'll let you start this one off.
I mean, what can you say about this guy? He's the obvious rookie of the year. The man, he played his heart out. Obviously, the Texans are not set for a deep playoff run yet, and when you match up with the Ravens, it's not going to be easy. The man went down fighting. Obviously, you just couldn't beat the Ravens. You didn't have enough weapons around you. Like, it is what it is, but hell of a first year out of the kid.
Holmes.
Yeah, arguably one of the best playoff performers this season, given the circumstances. Rookie, first time being in the playoffs, probably the youngest team in the playoffs, first year head coach. You got to give him all the credit in the world, man. He played his ass off during the regular season, and to continue that over and play that well in the playoffs as well. I mean, yeah, got to give him a ton of credit, man. You're only going to see that kid grow from here on out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both y'all. I think this is the best quarterback the Texans have seen in a minute. And he definitely kind of revived this program on his back. So I definitely think he deserves all the recognition he got. And I feel like that's one quarterback that really didn't get a lot of hate throughout the season. You realize that, like, he really didn't receive a lot of negative input from the public. He was just kind of like, he's there doing his job.
Yeah,
So
I
props to
mean, nor
him.
should he have.
Huh?
Nor should he have.
Yeah, no, he was a stud. Next up we got Josh Allen. I'll start this one off. Josh Allen started the season off very, very bad. I feel like the Bills definitely were not seen as a playoff contender those first 5 games. A lot of problems with the offense overall, and then you have everybody on every betting platform known to man hammering the Josh Allen INT every single game and cashing out on it. And that's not a good statistic to have on your back. But he did turn it up towards the end of the season. I think he made an okay run in the playoffs. He I don't know, dude. I just feel like this guy, like, he is a quarterback that needs stars around him. We talked about Josh Purdy needing stars around him. I feel like this guy here, yes, he can scramble, yes, he can run, yes, he is big, but he does need some new playmakers. Holmes.
Brock Purdy, not Josh Purdy, but you got it.
Sorry, Josh
And I had
Purdy.
Josh Allen on the brain. Yeah, I mean, he had a good playoff run, man. I think a lot of people could be quick to shit on Josh Allen just because of the non-success that the Bills have had in the playoffs, but I don't think you can attribute that to him at all. He had a couple of really good playoff games. The defense has been literally beaten up all year by massive injuries. And they just weren't really able to stay in it. I agree with you too. there's room to get another star there on that offense. I mean, it's really tough to rely on him and Stephon Diggs to kind of do it all themselves. And when Stephon Diggs doesn't even show up in their game against the Chiefs, there's not really much else you can do there, especially when Josh is doing all he can to win that game. So, yeah, down the stretch when he needed to win and needed to turn it on for his team, he made it happen, man. But there's only so far you can go just doing it by yourself.
Yeah, I think if Josh Allen can fix his turnover issues, he's poised for an MVP season and a deep run in the playoffs. As far as weapons go, he does have weapons. I mean, Dalton Kincaid emerged as a great weapon this year. Stephon Diggs is obviously great on the team. They just, for some reason, there's a connection issue between the two that is just not panning out. Um, but the Bills started off slow. They got hot, like we say. You get hot at the right time, doesn't matter. Only problem is you're facing off with your mortal enemy in the Chiefs, who you can't beat.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if Josh Allen fixes those turnover issues, the guy's got the personality, like he's got the ability. He just needs to be more careful.
Agreed. So next we have Lamar. I feel like we kind of really covered Lamar earlier in the pod. Do you
Yeah.
guys have any other comments you'd like to make about him?
I think he
No,
just
I'm
needs
good.
to mentally slow down. I think that's the big thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Holmes.
No, I'm good. I kind of said my piece on
The next one.
him.
This guy down here with the short little stump and his face on it. Jalen Hurts. I'll give it to Mondo first. Let's see what Mondo has to say about Mr. Jalen.
Okay. Mr. Hertz, where do I start? You start off the season 11-1. MVP, clear cut front runner up to that point. I think something went wrong. He's kind of losing the locker room. We obviously know Sirianni's losing the locker room. I think it was just a lot of behind the scenes trouble for the Eagles. Um, and then obviously you keep playing through it. He falls apart. He's getting hurt. It was just a real roller coaster of a season for him. I don't think he should go anywhere. I think he's got the ability to keep dominating, but the main problem I think going into that game against the Bucks, the dude was hurt. Like his fingers were broken. He's been banged up. His shoulders had issues. Like at the end of the day, you can only do so much when you're that injured. But he just he needs balls. Uh, Plain and
Okay.
simple. The dude has no fucking cojones. Go out there and drop him on the fucking table and show him who the hell you are. That's what he was doing for the first 12 weeks. Why? What? Did you get fucking neutered? Like, figure it out.
That's getting clipped. I'm just gonna say that now. Holmes, go ahead.
It's just weird to just watch how the Eagles fell apart at the end of the season, man. I think a lot of it just Nick Sirianni, I think losing the locker room a little bit toward the end of the season on that schneid, like they just couldn't piece it together. They couldn't make any adjustments. They couldn't just get anything working for them down the stretch. And it was very evident against the Bucks. I mean, Todd Bowles brought pressure all game, and there was nothing that Jalen Hurts or anybody on that team could do to figure out how to defend that, how to get around that, how to do anything against those blitzes. And I mean, Bucks D tore him up all night. He is the franchise leader there for the Eagles. He's the guy I think that they're going to have to roll with moving forward. And there, I don't see any problems really there. I think the biggest problem right now, in my opinion, is Nick Sirianni. I just really don't see him as the mature kind of head coach that is the right guy to pair up with Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts has that mature mindset. He is a very good leader, and I can see him as a very good leader amongst men in that locker room. But you got to get a good head coach to be able to pair up with that kind of personality, not some guy that's like screaming at the other sideline and at the fans and making stupid comments here and there. Like, I don't think that links up well with him, and that might have contributed a little bit to their downfall this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with both y'all. I feel like the man on the moon over here should have required every person from the Eagle staff to wear a GoPro after they started taking L's because I am really curious to see what was going on behind the scenes with this team. There's a lot of things you could point out. You had that one security guard towards the end. What was his name?
That Dom.
Yeah, Big Dom. That was a funny one. But it's funny for us, but for them, I'm sure that was just icing on the cake where you have people that aren't even like players or necessarily on your coaching staff that are fucking up.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm curious to see like if anything comes out about this team regarding what was going on. I'm sure nothing will, but I mean that's a fall off that needs to be studied. Um, Next, we kind of touched on this man a little bit as well, Mr. Goff. Do you guys have any comments about him?
I just want to say I think he had a great year. I mean, he has continued to progress under Dan Campbell's system with the Lions. Um, I see no reason as to why he is in any danger of losing his spot, as to why he'd be in any danger of the Lions drafting a QB looking to make a change. He distributes the ball well. I think you got to like how he leads that offense. He's got the weapons around him. I think they just need a little bit more discipline from the coaching staff side in terms of taking the damn points.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is Baker Mayfield before Baker Mayfield. He got tossed aside to get Matthew Stafford over to LA. He obviously had a lot of trust issues after that. He's continued to build himself up, and he had an incredible year. I mean, there's just, you can't knock the guy. He had an incredible year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about him. But this next guy with the six head, Mr. Dak Prescott, I'm sure you guys have. I mean, I'll start this one off. I think he had an incredible season. Um, Pre-playoffs, I think that obviously what he did at home was amazing. I think that, obviously he has some lethal weapons around him that help him become the man he is today and the respect he is given. I also think that this Dallas defense this year was one that is just incredible and can really only go up. But man, the Cowboys in the playoffs, bro. I mean, it's kind of like him and Mr. Josh Allen over here. They have a curse above their heads. Somebody hexed them. And it's just until they find out who did it, I think they're just going to keep going down this, rabbit hole of L's in the playoffs. Um, Holmes, what do you think?
I think it's just the difference in between him and Josh Allen is that at least Josh Allen's like playing his ass off in the playoffs and doing something to give his team a chance to win. I don't think you could say the same about Dak, especially against the Packers this year. I mean, he had a horrible game. I mean, the Cowboys as a team had a horrible game. I mean, the Packers ran them out the door from the minute that game started, and they went down and scored that touchdown the opening drive. I mean, it was over from there. He said it. He had a great regular season, but so far in his career, he's been a regular season merchant.
Yeah.
Okay, if he can actually do something in the playoffs, maybe like win a game, maybe like get to a conference championship, maybe we would put a little bit more respect on his name year after year. But until then, I mean, again, he is nothing more than a regular season merchant. Boom, he'll get you 13, 14 wins. Could look like the best team in the regular season, but when you get to the playoffs and you just start choking everything away, it's really hard to trust you at that point.
Mondo?
Mr. fucking garbage time. Dak Prescott. For the casuals that watch the game, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Not a bad stat line. What you don't see is that was all in garbage time when the game did not matter. Dak Prescott has completely lost the locker room. Not just that, he's lost the fan base and the families of all the players. We see it on social media every day. Dak Prescott has yet to impress me as a quarterback. Sure, he can stat pad the fuck out of it. Any QB can in the regular season. But unless you prove yourself in the playoffs, I mean, you're a fucking regular season merchant. You're like Joel Embiid, Hall of Fame free throw merchant. Your shit doesn't matter until you prove it in the playoffs. The fucker just can't prove it. It's not that hard. Just fucking go out there and play correctly. There's like a switch where he just becomes a fucking moron. I don't get it. He's lost so many people inside and outside that locker room. Like, aside from his stat padding, I don't know how he's still there.
Yeah. I mean, who do you think the Cowboys could turn to though, besides Dak? Who would they feel comfortable with giving that title to though?
As the franchise quarterback,
Yeah, like unless they draft somebody this year, which I doubt. Who is on their roster right now that they could hand off that position to and feel comfortable with performing the same way that Dak does.
I don't necessarily think it's a handing off, but I honestly think someone like a Justin Fields. Dallas has a good offensive line, but the guy can run if he needs to. He'll mesh well with CeeDee Lamb. They'll find him in the crossing route. Justin Fields has a hell of an arm. He's just not in the right system. And, obviously Dak is the ultimate stat patter. He'll launch the ball downfield, but you get someone in there like Justin Fields who is there to prove himself. Like, it's the mentality that changes it at the end of the day. Like we were talking about with Mahomes. If you don't have that mentality, you're not going to make it far. It's that easy.
I mean, and Justin Fields is technically on the market. So, if Mr. Jerry watches the pod, you could take advice from your old boy Mondo over here.
Yes,
And
sir.
I also think it's just the shifting of the era in the NFL. I think that having a quarterback that can run is like the new meta. Like for anybody that plays video games, you know what a meta is. It's, what can outcompete all of the competitors. And I feel like, that's just kind of what they're lacking is he doesn't run. And I think he's also very injury prone. The man's made out of glass, especially his ankles. I feel like he fucks up his ankle every season. Enough about him. We'll move on to somebody who really doesn't need much explanation, Mr. Jordan Love. I think he had an incredible season. I think he really surprised people with his playoff run. And I think he's kind of secured his spot on the Green Bay offense. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. Holmes, what do you think?
Yeah, ditto, man. He proved himself this year. This was the big prove it year. I think he's been in that Packers system behind Aaron Rodgers. They wanted to see him be able to kind of take over those reins and just show them something this year because they put a lot of draft stock and capital into this guy. They wanted to make sure that they had the right one, and I think all of their fears were squashed after this year. I mean, Jordan Love played very, very well down the stretch. Absolutely amazing in that playoff game against the Cowboys. There's not really much you can ask for this guy coming into the organization after Aaron Rodgers. Like, you want to continue QB greatness, and hopefully this guy's the guy to do it for you. And after year one as a starter, it looks promising so far.
Mondo?
You guys hit on the head. I don't really have much to add here.
And I know why Mondo doesn't have much to add, and that is because he is staring at the cute little Hawaiian man on the corner, Mr. Tua Tagovailoa. Mondo, I'm curious to see. Before Mondo goes on his rant, I will say I think Tua is a great quarterback. I think he just kind of fucked it up in the postseason. That's all I really have to say about it because I don't want to step in hot water with Mondo. Mondo, go ahead.
Truthfully, I do not have a rant. I'm no longer angry. I do think there are a couple issues with Tua. First of all, let's just say, he had a great regular season. It is what it is. You fall apart a little bit at the end. You lose to Buffalo. Obviously, that's a crucial game. That's what ends up costing you, the negative 30-degree trip to Kansas City. So aside from that, Tua has two major issues. There is a trust issue when it's not fair weather, and that's very plain as day in the play calling. And number two, and most importantly, the guy has no killer instinct. And if you're trying to be a leader and prove that you are the guy that everyone should follow, there's got to be that killer instinct up there. You see it with Mahomes. When it comes down to the fourth quarter, there's no one more locked in and ready to fucking go than him. Even Brock Purdy, you see it with him. The guy, he's basically like a plain piece of toast. But when it gets to late in the game, he's not afraid to put his body on the line and scramble and do this and do that.
Yep.
Tua, in order to establish himself as a leader, he needs that instinct, and that needs to be a focal point of this offseason. I don't really have a rant on it. Like, we're at the point now. This next year is the decision year. If he doesn't prove himself, we move on. If he does, he stays. This is the year. So that's all I'll say. I won't go too crazy into it, but the pieces are there. This is the time to prove it.
Yeah, I agree completely with Mondo. I don't really have much else to add. I think one of the biggest thing that gets overlooked, especially come down to the playoff time of the season, is how injured that defense was, man. Like,
yeah,
can't put it squarely on Tua and the offense's shoulders. Like, I get it. They didn't play their best, but when you have that much talent, that much skill on the defensive side of the ball that isn't available to you, mostly because of season-ending injuries and multi-week injuries, and these guys can't get on the field. I mean, dude, it's the NFL. The starters are better than backups. That's the way it is by and large. And when your guys are not out there to perform on defense like that they're capable of, it makes it a lot harder for your guys to win. It's a lot more pressure on your offense to be able to now put up points to match the other offense because the defense isn't going to be able to get it done. So it's easy to be able to blame the quarterback for tough games, but again, I think with the Lamar situation, it's just he wasn't put in the right situation. It sucks. It's different than Lamar because their defense was healthy. They just had a poorly play called game. This team has just been ravaged by injuries. There's only so much you can do about that. The healthiest teams survive in the playoffs.
Well said.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about him. But the thought of Tua going somewhere other than Miami is weird. Like, I feel like this man bleeds SoFlo at this point, and everybody in SoFlo loves him. That would be something. Last person, we're not talking about him. Fuck you, Roger.
Attaboy, Gare.
But yeah,
what a great segment.
That was Gare's graveyard.
That was awesome, Gare. Good job.
Good stuff, kid.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Final segment of the day. NBA or Chell? Holmes, you're up.
All right, we got a few. First, for the first time, Unbettable history, I will be dropping a college basketball play.
Wow.
I have not gotten into college basketball like at all this season, but tonight I like Texas plus 5.5 at home. They got ranked Houston coming in, and honestly, I just love Texas in this spot with the home field advantage. Houston has already lost on the road in Big 12 play to Iowa State and TCU. I think this is another vulnerable spot where Texas can at least keep it close. It's possible they could get an outright win here with Houston's struggles on the road. So we're going to ride with Texas tonight. Big moves. Then we'll go to the ice. NHL, there's only one game tonight. So we put together a little same game parlay with my boy Nick Lip, who has been literally red hot in the NHL. He has been going crazy. We're going with the Predators on the money line tonight. And we're putting that with Ryan O'Reilly over 0.5 points. All he has to do is get a goal or assist tonight. He is the forward that plays the most on the Predators. He is the second leading points scorer on that team. So we're rocking with them tonight. Senators have lost 2 in a row at home. We're going to rock with the hotter team in the Preds. To the association, I have 4 plays, 2 parlays, 2 single plays. The single plays, we're going to go Jarrett Allen over 10.5 rebounds. I'm honestly a little bit sketched out about this one. If you don't want to take it, I placed this before I realized that Evan Mobley was coming back tonight. Jarrett Allen has just obviously been a monster in rebound categories with Evan Mobley out. Mobley will be a little bit restricted tonight, but if you don't want to play this, I completely understand. It's a little bit sketchy. I'm also taking De'Aaron Fox over 30.5 points and assists. He's just a great matchup against the Grizzlies tonight. He's been averaging, I think, like 29 points by himself. So I think he's going to get a lot of great looks tonight. He'll be able to dish the ball out. I think that's a good play to ride tonight single. And then a couple parlays put together Kevin Durant to score 20 points and Wemby to get 11 boards. I'm also taking Paolo Banchero to get 5 assists and Nikola Jokic to make one 3-pointer because his line is literally at 0.5. That dude pulls up from 3 at least a couple times a game, and he makes some miraculous shit every time. So I don't know. I'm gonna just ride it. And I don't know, man. There's something about that dude. He sinks him from 3.
Mm-hmm. Gare, anything tonight?
No, I haven't talked to my boy Malik yet. But after this, I'm gonna hop on. Me and Malik will cook some shit up if he's responsive. He's kind of slow sometimes, but if I have a play, you'll see it. I'm not hiding him anymore. But I will say, I fucking posted that one on Twitter. But oh well, whatever.
All right, let's go through it. AD over 25.5 points. Vassell. I never learned how to say it. Over 27.5 points, rebounds, assists. Strus over 3.5 rebounds. Jalen Green over 3.5 rebounds. Harden over 8.5 assists. D'Lo over 24.5 points and assists. Fred VanVleet over 26.5 points, rebounds, assists. Predators plus 1.5.
Let's go, dude. Let's go. Ride the Preds. Preds minus 1.5. Damn, what kind of juice did you get on that? That's probably really nice.
I got, well, it's minus 250.
Oh, for minus? Okay, all right. That's something that's it'll work. It'll work.
But that's gonna do it for today's episode. If you guys enjoy, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with everyone you know. We're pumping out new content as shown by Gary's segment. Holmes may have a new podcast coming in the future, or maybe a revisit to an old podcast coming back. So stay tuned for that. What's up, Gary?
I have an announcement. I am dropping a podcast. It's going to be new, attached to Big Dawg Media. It is going to be me and a guest. And I'm going to be interviewing people who are tied into the sports world and just kind of getting their story. My first guest is actually my neighbor, worked with the Braves and their athletic training staff, and now owns his own I-9 franchise. He will be the first guest. I also got the quarterback from Robert Morrison lined up. And I have another one who is my absolute best friend, homie from football. He's lined up. That's 3 guests so far. So expect the first episode to be dropping most likely end of this week.
Wow.
There you go.
It is going to be called Rec Room.
Big moves.
All right, Gary. There you have it. Under the Big Dawg Media umbrella, we're adding 2 new podcasts. Shit, man. Stay tuned. We got stuff coming out. Wednesday's episode will probably be Super Bowl preview. We'll talk into a little another graphic. We'll talk some other shit too. But we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.